Before the world teaches you what to want, you must first remember who you are. Before the noise of others' expectations fills your ears, you must learn to sit in the silence of your own breath. And so I ask you, what would happen if today you stopped chasing and started becoming? Because the path to transformation does not begin in force, it begins in stillness. Every day the woman who rises with intention and breathes with awareness becomes more than a body in motion. She becomes a presence that shifts the very air around her. But this does not come from chaos. It comes from discipline, from choosing to master yourself in a world designed to distract you from your power. And so if you are willing, listen closely. The first habit, detach from outcome. Too many suffer not because they fail but because they cling. You are not here to hold on to results. You are here to walk the path. The flower does not bloom by demanding the sun. It simply aligns with nature. Align with who you are, and the results will arrive on their own time. Second, honor the breath. Your breath is your anchor. Shallow breath, shallow life. Deep breath, deep presence. If you forget the breath, you forget the now. And all transformation only happens now. Third, rise with stillness. Before you pick up your phone, your tasks, or your burdens, sit. Be still. Let the silence speak to you. In that silence, the false you begins to dissolve, and the real you begins to wake. Fourth, move with intention. Your movements are a reflection of your mind. Walk slowly, eat slowly, speak slowly. The woman who rushes is ruled by fear. The woman who moves with purpose has already won half the battle before it begins. Fifth, cleanse the mind. You shower your body, but you forget to cleanse your thoughts. Each day take time to empty. Journaling, meditation, stillness. Let the mind breathe. The cleaner the mirror, the clearer the reflection of who you are. Sixth, speak less, observe more. Observation is the beginning of wisdom. Do not be quick to respond. Watch, feel, listen. There is power in your silence and danger in unchecked words. The woman who watches without reacting owns the room even when she says nothing. Seventh, practice emotional non-attachment. Feel, but do not become your feelings. Like clouds in the sky, let them pass. A storm may visit, but it does not define the sky. Your strength is measured not by how deeply you feel, but by how calmly you respond. Eighth, discipline the body. Train your body daily, not for appearance but for control. The body is the temple of your soul, and a chaotic temple cannot hold peace. The stronger the body, the steadier the mind. Ninth, feed the soul, not the ego. The world teaches you to impress. Your spirit calls you to express. Choose what feeds your truth, not what fuels your pride. Choose books over gossip. Choose solitude over performance. Choose what awakens, not what distracts. And finally, 10th, give without needing. Do not give to be seen. Give because you have cultivated so much within that it overflows. True giving has no hunger in it. It is abundance shared, not validation begged. Let me remind you of this. You do not need to become someone else. You only need to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. These habits are not actions. They are invitations. Invitations to return to your power, to master your mind, to honor your body, to serve from fullness, to detach with grace, and to move through this world, not as a reaction, but as a revelation. Detachment from outcome is not indifference, nor is it a lack of care. It is a higher form of awareness, one that acknowledges the desire for a result, but refuses to let that desire dominate the journey. A woman who has mastered the art of detaching from outcomes understands a sacred truth. Control is an illusion, and obsession is a form of suffering. She still plants the seed, she still waters the soil, but she does not scream at the flower to bloom. She knows that her responsibility ends at effort, not at results. This habit begins internally. It starts the moment you ask yourself why you are doing what you're doing. Are you working to be seen? Or are you working because it aligns with your purpose? Are you loving to receive something back? Or are you loving because it is who you are? The more your actions are tethered to expectations, the more your emotional state becomes unstable. You rise and fall with outcomes. You become addicted to feedback, addicted to winning, addicted to things outside of your control. This is not strength. This is imprisonment. A woman must rise above this. Her discipline must be in her effort, not her reward. She wakes up and meditates, not because it will give her peace in exactly 14 days, but because it is the right thing to do. She speaks kindly, not because others will always reciprocate, but because she has mastered her own character. She stays consistent in her work, not because the world owes her recognition, but because her soul honors integrity. When you are free from needing things to turn out a certain way, you become powerful, you become unshaken by delay, you are no longer drained by disappointment. You are anchored. You begin to see obstacles not as enemies, but as teachers. You stop bargaining with life and begin to dance with it. That detachment becomes a form of elegance, an inner poise that says, I will give my best, and I trust that what must come will come. It does not mean you stop dreaming. It means you no longer allow your dreams to consume your peace. The dream becomes an offering, not an obsession. You detach not because you don't care about the outcome, but because you care more about your state of being along the way. And from this place of internal freedom, something extraordinary happens. You begin to attract more. You begin to flow instead of force. You become magnetic because you are no longer grasping. When you master this, you stop needing life to be perfect before you are at peace. You stop needing others to validate your path before you feel confident in it. You move, speak, and live from a place of inner fullness, not emotional hunger. And this is the mark of a woman who does not beg life to give her something. She shows up, she gives her all, and then she lets go. That is strength. That is freedom. That is power. Breath is not just air moving in and out of the body. It is life itself. It is the silent force that connects the physical to the spiritual. Every inhale carries potential. Every exhale releases what no longer serves. A woman who has learned to honor her breath walks differently through the world. She is not rushed by time or ruled by chaos. She knows that by controlling the breath, she controls the mind. And by calming the mind, she unlocks the doorway to wisdom. Most people live without ever being present. Their breath is shallow, automatic, forgotten. They breathe only enough to survive, not to awaken. But the woman who chooses to breathe consciously reclaims her center in every moment. When emotions rise, she returns to the breath. When fear knocks, she inhales presence and exhales resistance. She does not allow herself to be swept away by outer noise, because she has found stillness in her inner rhythm. Breath is the first thing you are given when you enter this world and the last thing you release when you leave. It is the most sacred practice, yet the most neglected. Honoring your breath means you live with intention. It means you recognize that how you breathe influences how you think, feel, and act. Shallow breaths create anxiety. Deep, slow breaths summon peace. The way you breathe is a reflection of the way you live. This is why conscious breathing must become a daily ritual, not reserved for moments of panic or stress, but woven into every task. When you wake up, the first thing you must meet is your breath, not your phone, not your obligations. When you eat, you breathe deeply and slowly, allowing your body to receive. When you walk, your steps fall in rhythm with your breath, turning every movement into a meditation. The woman who breathes with awareness is never far from herself. No matter where she is home. In every breath there is a chance to reset, to come back to now, to release the past and quiet the future. This is where real power lives, not in how much you can control, but in how deeply you can return to the present. Because the present is not just a moment, it is a dimension of clarity. When you are fully in your breath, you are fully in life. And when you are fully in life, you stop missing the miracles hidden in ordinary moments. A calm breath becomes a calm mind. A calm mind becomes a calm life. The woman who learns this no longer reacts to everything. She responds. She no longer rushes to fill silence. She listens. She no longer fears uncertainty. She breathes through it. And in doing so, she carries an unshakable energy, soft but unbreakable, quiet but commanding. Because the breath has become her anchor. Her power is not in force. It is in flow. And it begins with one thing, remembering to breathe. There is a sacred power in how a woman begins her day. Long before the world rises to demand, distract, and define her, there is a window of stillness, a divine pause between darkness and light, where she chooses who she will be. To rise with stillness is to reclaim that moment before the noise creeps in. It is to say, before I belong to the world, I belong to myself. The world is fast. It pulls your attention before you've even opened your eyes. Messages, notifications, responsibilities. They arrive like waves crashing on an unguarded shore. But if you do not anchor yourself first, you will be swept away. A woman who rises with stillness refuses to begin her day in reaction. She begins with reverence, with presence, with silence that listens deeper than words. Stillness is not emptiness. It is the fullness of being. It is the moment where your soul speaks without the need for sound. In this stillness you meet your truest self, the one who is not shaped by fear, pressure, or expectation. She is not rushing, she is not proving, she is simply present, and from that presence, clarity flows. To wake in stillness is to create space between you and the world. That space becomes your strength. In that space you breathe deeply, you feel your body, you observe your thoughts without becoming them. You align your spirit with your highest values. You remind yourself that you are not here to perform. You are here to live, to grow, to serve. The woman who starts her day in silence moves through her hours with a different energy. She is not reactive, she is rooted. She does not rush to control every outcome. She trusts the process because she has already aligned her inner world. And when the storms come, and they always do, she meets them with a calm center. Not because life is easy, but because she is anchored in stillness. There is no need for elaborate rituals, just the courage to sit, to be, to listen. Even 5 minutes of sacred silence can transform the shape of your entire day. In that space, the clutter begins to fall away. The truth rises. You realize how much of your suffering came from moving too quickly, from thinking too much, from skipping the inner alignment. Stillness is the antidote to that chaos. And so the woman who rises before the world rises, she owns her day before it begins. She walks into meetings, into relationships, into challenges, not from a place of survival, but from a place of sovereignty. She does not beg the day to be kind. She meets it with quiet strength, already filled, already whole. She doesn't need loud affirmations to convince herself of her worth. Her worth is remembered in the silence she honors. And from that sacred pause each morning she builds a life not of reaction, but of conscious, intentional becoming. To move with intention is to live in alignment with purpose, to refuse the pull of hurry and chaos, and instead embrace the sacred art of deliberate action. A woman who has mastered this understands that life is not something to rush through. It is something to move through with clarity, presence, and grace. Every movement, every word, every step becomes an extension of who she is, not a reaction to what the world demands. So many are consumed by urgency. They rush to speak, rush to reply, rush to arrive, but in their rushing, they lose themselves. The hurried woman often lives outside of herself, driven by what is next, never rooted in what is now. But the woman who moves with intention is different. She slows down, not because she is lazy, but because she is precise. Her energy is not scattered, it is focused. She does not act simply because she can. She acts because it is right. To move with intention means that your energy is sacred, and you no longer give it away carelessly. You do not pour yourself into things that do not serve your spirit. You do not speak just to fill silence, or agree just to keep peace. You understand that every action creates a ripple, and so you act only when your heart, mind, and soul are in agreement. Your movement becomes your message. This does not mean you move slowly. It means you move consciously. You enter a room and your energy speaks before you do. You sit in conversation and your presence commands respect, not through force but through focus. You are not thinking of the next task while completing the current one. You are here, fully, and that is your power. The woman who moves with intention also rests with intention. She knows when to pause, when to retreat, when to say no. Her boundaries are not walls, they are gateways to inner peace. She has nothing to prove by being everywhere, doing everything, or pleasing everyone. She knows that being aligned is far more valuable than being busy. This habit is a reflection of deep inner order. You must first quiet the noise within to move with clarity without. You cannot walk a straight path with a distracted mind. That's why intention begins before action. It begins in the breath, in the stillness, in the clarity of asking, why am I doing this? Who am I becoming through this? Does this align with the woman I'm choosing to be? When you live like this, your life becomes art. Even the smallest gestures, making tea, writing an email, walking to your car, become sacred expressions. And in a world that rewards speed, you become unforgettable because of your depth, your stillness amidst the noise, your calm amidst the storm. To move with intention is to move like you know exactly who you are, and exactly what you carry. You no longer chase moments. You create them one deliberate step at a time. The mind left unchecked becomes a noisy and restless place. It gathers the dust of every conversation, every fear, every opinion, and stores it as truth. A woman who seeks to walk in power must understand that cleansing the mind is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Just as the body must be cleaned each day to maintain its health, the mind must be cleared to maintain its clarity. Without this inner cleansing, she will begin to carry emotional weight that was never hers to hold, thoughts that do not serve her, and beliefs that quietly sabotage her growth. To cleanse the mind is to take full responsibility for your inner environment. It is to become the gatekeeper of your own consciousness. You do not allow just anything to enter. You do not allow every emotion to take root. You do not allow old narratives to replay without questioning. Instead, you observe, you question, you release. This is not repression, it is purification. It is learning to differentiate between what is real and what is noise, between what empowers you and what enslaves you. Throughout the day you absorb many things, people's moods, the world's chaos, your own doubts and expectations. If you do not pause and cleanse, these things begin to accumulate, and just like clutter in a room blocks the light, clutter in the mind blocks your vision. You begin to forget what matters. You react instead of respond. You lose the connection between your spirit and your choices. But a cleansed mind is like a clear lake. It reflects truth. It reflects intention. It reflects strength. The practice of mental cleansing is simple, yet profound. It begins with awareness. Throughout the day, notice the thoughts that enter your mind. Are they building you or breaking you? Are they based in truth or fear? Journaling can be a powerful tool, pouring out what is hidden so it no longer controls you. Meditation is another doorway, sitting in silence, letting thoughts rise and fall without clinging. Even speaking aloud what you're feeling can release the pressure. The goal is not to control the mind, but to create space within it. When your mind is clear, you see life as it is, not as your emotions distort it. You begin to feel what is yours and release what isn't. You stop overthinking every word, every silence, every outcome. You act not from confusion, but from conviction. Your energy becomes lighter, your presence deeper. You become a woman who does not carry yesterday into today, who does not let old stories dictate new chapters. And in this clarity, confidence is born. Not the loud external kind, but the quiet, unwavering kind that moves from within. The kind that says, I know who I am and I choose what I hold. Every day a woman must clean her mind like she cleans her home, with love, with care, and with the full awareness that she is creating sacred space for peace, purpose, and power to dwell. In a world addicted to noise, silence is a radical discipline, and the woman who chooses to speak less and observe more holds a rare kind of power, the power that comes not from volume but from depth. Most people speak quickly to avoid discomfort, to fill space, or to prove a point, but wisdom does not need to be loud. It does not rush to be understood. It waits, it listens, it watches, and then it speaks, only when necessary. To speak less is not about withholding your voice, but about honoring its weight. Your words are not meant to be scattered like dust. They are to be released like arrows with precision and purpose. When a woman speaks with intention, every word matters. She does not interrupt to be heard. She does not speak to be seen. She speaks because what she carries within her has matured in silence, and now must be expressed. That is the difference between reaction and revelation. Observation is the silent teacher. When you choose to observe more, you begin to see things others miss. The tension behind a smile, the truth behind a contradiction, the energy behind a word. You become sensitive to what is unsaid. This awareness sharpens your intuition. It strengthens your discernment. And most importantly, it teaches you the wisdom of restraint. Not every opinion needs to be voiced. Not every battle needs to be fought. Sometimes the most powerful move is to be still and simply watch. Through observation you learn the patterns of others, but also the patterns of your own mind. You begin to notice how quickly you want to defend yourself, how often you seek approval, how easily you fall into unnecessary conversations. And by noticing, you begin to shift. You begin to pause before responding. You begin to ask, is this worthy of my voice? Does this reflect the woman I am becoming? That pause alone can save you hours of regret and days of emotional recovery. Speaking less also gives your presence more impact. When you are silent, people lean in. They listen more carefully when you finally speak, because your words are rare and measured. Silence creates space. Space for reflection, space for others to reveal themselves, and space for your own spirit to guide you rather than your ego. But this practice also requires strength. It is not easy to stay silent when the world rewards performance. It takes inner security to resist the urge to be constantly heard, to let others speak without needing to correct, to let moments pass without having the last word. Yet this very restraint becomes your quiet authority. You no longer need to dominate to be respected. You become respected because of your control. Over time, your silence becomes a mirror. It shows you who you are beneath the surface. And in that mirror, you discover a woman who is not hurried, not needy, not easily shaken. You discover a woman who listens before she speaks, watches before she moves, and thinks before she reacts. That woman commands a room without raising her voice, because she has mastered herself. Emotional non-attachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the mastery of feeling. A woman who understands this does not shut down her emotions. She feels everything deeply but does not allow herself to be ruled by what she feels. She does not allow temporary waves of sadness, anger, or desire to become the compass that steers her life. Instead, she allows emotions to rise, teaches herself to sit with them, and lets them pass like clouds in the sky, knowing they are not the sky itself. Most people confuse emotional detachment with coldness, but this is not about building walls around the heart. It is about building strength within the heart. It is about knowing the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is instinctual and uncontrolled, often rooted in unresolved wounds. Responding comes from awareness, from a place of centeredness that does not fear the emotion, but does not become it either. This is the space where true emotional maturity is born. To practice emotional non-attachment, a woman must begin by observing. She must be able to say to herself, "I am feeling anger right now," instead of simply being angry. She names the emotion without becoming the emotion. This act alone creates distance, space between the emotion and the self. And in that space, there is power. Power to choose a response. Power to step back. Power to see clearly instead of through the lens of temporary chaos. This habit becomes especially important in relationships. When a woman is emotionally attached to how others behave, speak, or respond, she begins to give her power away. She becomes reactive, defensive, even desperate to control situations so that her emotions can remain stable. But a woman who has cultivated emotional non-attachment understands she cannot control the behavior of others, only her response to it. She no longer clings to needing others to validate, comfort, or complete her. She meets herself in her own emotional storms and finds shelter within. This does not mean she suppresses. It means she processes. It means she allows herself to cry, to feel, to sit in discomfort. But she does not act impulsively from it. She does not text in anger. She does not beg for attention. She does not spiral when someone disappoints her. She returns to herself, again and again. This returning is the foundation of strength. With emotional non-attachment, she becomes consistent. She does not rise and fall with the tides of drama. She becomes like the ocean floor, still, deep, unmoved. Even while the surface churns, her peace becomes her protection. Her calm becomes her compass. She is not shaken by rejection or flattered by attention, because both are external. She lives from within. And in this state, she can love more purely, not out of fear, not out of need, but out of fullness, because her emotions are no longer her master. They are her messengers. She receives them, learns from them, and lets them go. That is how a woman becomes emotionally sovereign. That is how she becomes free. The body is the first home of the soul. To discipline the body is not just a physical act, it is a spiritual commitment. A woman who disciplines her body is not seeking superficial perfection, she is seeking alignment. She understands that her body is not separate from her mind or spirit. It is a vessel, a reflection, a sacred instrument that either supports her highest self or betrays it. Discipline of the body is not about punishment, it is about reverence. When a woman chooses to train her body, she is choosing to train her focus. Every movement done with purpose becomes a form of meditation. Whether it is breath work, walking, stretching, martial arts, or strength training, the repetition brings clarity. It brings order. It brings the deep understanding that growth does not come from comfort. It comes from consistency. And the more consistently she moves her body, the more she strengthens her will. In a world that glorifies ease, discipline becomes a sacred rebellion. The undisciplined body is easily swayed by mood, by pain, by distraction, but the trained body listens. It obeys not out of fear, but out of trust. It becomes a servant to the higher self, not a slave to temporary desires. A disciplined woman knows that if she can conquer the resistance in her muscles, she can conquer the resistance in her mind. The soreness after training is not suffering, it is transformation. It is the body saying, I am becoming stronger. This discipline spills over into every part of life. When you can rise early despite the temptation to sleep, when you can complete a workout despite fatigue, when you can fast, stretch, train, and nourish your body with intention, you are building a deeper mastery. You are telling yourself, I am in control. I choose discomfort today so I can choose strength tomorrow. That strength then enters your speech, your posture, your energy. People feel it when you walk into a room. Not just physical strength, but spiritual authority. Disciplining the body also teaches humility. It teaches you to face your limits and push gently beyond them. It teaches patience, the understanding that results come, not in one day, but through many days of showing up even when it's hard. In that process, the woman becomes unshakable. She does not fear effort, and she does not retreat from challenge. Her body becomes a living example of her inner discipline. This is not about becoming obsessed with image or fitness trends. It is about embodying respect for the life force you have been given. It is about refusing to let lethargy, addiction, or self-neglect become your norm. The woman who disciplines her body wakes with vitality, moves with purpose, rests with integrity, and carries herself with grounded confidence. She is not easily broken because her temple is fortified. Her body does not distract her from her mission. It supports it. And in this strength she honors herself, her calling, and the sacred gift of life itself. To feed the soul and not the ego is to make a conscious choice each day about what kind of woman you are becoming. The ego seeks attention, validation, and applause. It craves recognition, thrives on comparison, and feeds off fleeting moments of praise. The soul, however, seeks truth, depth, and alignment. It longs for stillness, integrity, and quiet growth that does not need an audience. A woman who chooses to nourish her soul walks a different path. She is not ruled by trends, nor is she easily swayed by the noise around her. Her nourishment comes from within. Feeding the ego may bring temporary satisfaction, but it always leaves behind a deeper hunger. It keeps you chasing, performing, and doubting. You start doing things not because they feel right, but because they look good. You start saying things not from conviction, but for approval. You start making decisions not from your center, but from fear of being overlooked. The ego is loud. It rushes. It needs constant reassurance. The soul, on the other hand, is quiet but unshakable. It needs no performance. It asks only for presence. To feed the soul is to pause and ask, does this choice reflect who I truly am? Is this action rooted in truth or in fear? It means choosing books that challenge your thinking over content that only flatters your views. It means choosing solitude over noise when your spirit needs rest. It means choosing stillness over applause, even when no one is watching. These choices may seem small, but over time they shape your entire life. They create a woman who is deeply rooted, not easily moved. When you feed your soul, you begin to notice a shift in your energy. You no longer feel the need to announce your every move, to seek approval before acting, to collect achievements like trophies. You become more grounded, more discerning, more peaceful. You can sit in a room and say nothing, yet carry the kind of presence that moves people. Because your power is not external, it is cultivated in silence, in private victories, in invisible transformations. This kind of nourishment requires discipline. It requires you to be honest with yourself, to admit when you are choosing image over truth, popularity over purpose, noise over depth. It requires humility, the willingness to grow in ways that no one may ever applaud. But the reward is freedom. Freedom from needing to be liked. Freedom from needing to be seen. Freedom from the emotional roller coaster of ego-driven living. The woman who feeds her soul lives with intention. She walks into every room not to be impressive, but to be aligned. Her joy is not tied to compliments. Her peace is not tied to outcomes, and her worth is not dependent on who notices her. She does not need to compete, because she is rooted in purpose. And from this place she becomes unshakable. Not because she is perfect, but because she is nourished from the inside out. To give without needing is one of the highest forms of inner strength and spiritual maturity. Most people give with invisible strings attached, seeking appreciation, reciprocation, acknowledgement, or validation. But the woman who gives from fullness does not seek to be filled by others. She has already done the inner work to know that her worth is not increased by how others respond to her generosity. She gives not to prove her value, but because her value overflows. Giving without need is not about self-sacrifice. It is about self-alignment. When you are aligned with your true self, you realize that giving is not a transaction. It is a transmission of who you are. Whether it's your time, love, energy, or resources, you offer it not because you're trying to earn someone's place in your life, but because that is the kind of life you've chosen to live. This kind of giving is free. It is whole. It is sacred. The woman who gives in this way is never drained, because she knows her limits. She gives from her abundance, not from her exhaustion. She does not give to be seen as kind. She gives because she is kind. She is not giving to impress, to manipulate, or to receive anything in return. And so when her gift is not acknowledged or returned, she remains steady, because she did not give to receive, she gave to express. This does not mean she allows herself to be used. On the contrary, giving without needing also includes the wisdom of knowing when not to give. It includes discernment, boundaries, and clarity. It means she knows the difference between giving as an act of love and giving as a hidden cry for connection. She honors herself enough to ensure that her giving is not a form of self-abandonment. In relationships, this kind of giving is transformative. It frees her from emotional debt, those silent expectations that poison even the most sincere acts of love. She loves without keeping score. She supports without silently demanding return. She shows up without using her giving as leverage, and because of this, her presence becomes healing, safe, unconditional. To give without need also means to release control. When you give, whether it's wisdom, compassion, or even forgiveness, you do not try to control how it is received. You let go, you trust, and that letting go becomes your power. The universe responds differently to the one who gives without fear, without need, without pride. What you give from wholeness returns multiplied, not always from the same source, but always in divine timing. And so, this woman walks differently. She is generous in spirit, calm in her giving, and unattached in her expectations. Her love does not beg, her service does not seek applause, her support is not a trap. She gives because she knows that what flows from her is a reflection of what is within her, and within her there is no lack, only abundance, only peace, only truth. When a woman chooses to master these habits, she does not simply improve her life, she transforms her very existence. She becomes unshakable, not because life becomes easier, but because she becomes stronger. Her strength is not loud but felt. Her presence is not demanding but undeniable. She no longer lives to prove, chase, or please. She lives to embody truth. The world may never applaud her discipline, her restraint, or her stillness, but she does not need applause. She is not here to perform. She is here to be, and in her being she awakens others. She walks with depth, speaks with intention, gives without need, and breathes like every moment is sacred, because it is. This is the kind of woman the world needs, one who is deeply rooted, spiritually aware, and inwardly free, not easily shaken by opinion, not enslaved by ego, not defined by outcomes. She is a mirror of what's possible when a woman rises, not through force, but through alignment. So remember this. Mastering your habits is not about control, it is about devotion. Devotion to who you truly are and who you are becoming.